They don't pick the smartest people. They pick the ones who don't quit. That distinction matters more than anything else you'll learn in the next 20 weeks. Quantico, Virginia. A Sunday night in November. You drive through the gate with everything you own packed into 2 bags because the letter said bring what you need for 20 weeks and nothing more. The Marine Corps base doesn't look like the beginning of anything. It looks like a place designed to make you forget you ever had a life before it. Gray buildings, floodlights, a silence that feels institutional, like the silence inside a hospital or a prison. Places where the normal rules of time don't apply. There are 50 of you, law degrees, accounting degrees, computer science degrees, military backgrounds. Some of you have been waiting for this moment since you were children. Some of you applied on a dare and passed every screening by accident. None of that matters now. The Bureau doesn't care about your origin story. It cares about what you do when the story gets hard. 850 hours, that's what stands between you and the badge. Firearms qualification with a Glock 19M. Defensive tactics with instructors who treat the mat like a classroom and pain like a teaching tool. Federal law, constitutional law, evidence procedure, interview technique, every hour scheduled, every minute accounted for. The FBI doesn't reward improvisation. It rewards the agent who follows the protocol so completely that the protocol becomes instinct. The night before graduation, you sit alone in your room holding a badge that isn't yours yet. You've earned it on paper, but something in the weight of it, the cold metal, the engraved seal, makes you understand for the first time that this isn't a job you're entering. It's an identity you're trading your old one for. Your family will be in the auditorium tomorrow. Your mother will take a photograph. You'll keep it on every desk for the next 25 years. But nobody tells you what the desk will cost. The movies lied about almost everything, not the danger. The danger is real, but the danger is maybe 3% of the job. The other 97% is paperwork, and nobody made a movie about paperwork because nobody would watch it. Even though paperwork is what actually puts people in prison. You get Omaha. You requested New York. The Bureau heard you and sent you to Nebraska anyway because the Bureau doesn't negotiate with ambition. You share a bullpen with 8 agents who've been here long enough to have opinions about the coffee machine. You get the worst desk, the oldest car in the fleet, and the cases nobody claimed during assignment. Which means bank robberies, almost exclusively because every federally insured bank robbery in America belongs to the FBI whether the field office wants it or not. Here's what a bank robbery actually looks like from the inside. A man walks into a branch on a Tuesday morning. He passes a note. He takes $2,800 from a teller who is already pressing the silent alarm before his hand leaves the counter. He walks out through the front door, not running, walking, because someone told him once that running looks suspicious, and gets captured on 4 separate cameras in high definition. You have his face, his jacket, his shoes, and his gait pattern before you finished your first cup of coffee. You find him in 36 hours. He's in a motel room watching television. The arrest takes 11 minutes. The paperwork takes 4 days. You read him his Miranda rights from a laminated card in your credential case. Not because you forgot the words, because you've only done this twice, and there is no margin for error in a federal case. One misquoted phrase, and a defense attorney turns your work into a dismissal. You drive him to the federal courthouse. The whole thing feels smaller than you imagine. Less cinematic, more procedural. That night, you eat dinner alone in a city you didn't choose and realize something that will take years to fully understand. You made an arrest today. Your name will appear nowhere in the outcome. 5 years in, you learn what patience actually costs. Not the patience they taught at Quantico, the kind where you hold a position and wait for instruction. Real patience. The kind that lives in a monitoring room at 2 in the morning with headphones on and cold coffee and a yellow legal pad filling up with transcriptions of a man's voice you've never heard speak in person but know more intimately than most people you've called friends. You transferred to a major field office. You requested organized crime because when you were 14, you watched a documentary about the Gambino family and never fully recovered from it. The Bureau gave you organized crime. The Bureau did not give you what the documentary promised. What it gave you is this room, 12-hour wiretap shifts. You listen to a target discuss shipments using language that sounds like it's about construction supplies, but isn't. You learn his tells, the way he clears his throat before saying something he knows is incriminating, the half-second pause before a name he doesn't want on the record. You know that he takes his coffee black, that his youngest daughter has a recital on Thursday, that he's been lying to his wife about where the money comes from for 11 years. One evening, he sings to his son over the phone, an old song, off-key, genuine. 12 minutes later, he tells someone a problem needs to be handled before the weekend. You write both things down with the same pen in the same notebook. That's the job. Not the arrests, not the headlines. The notebook. You spend 14 months building a RICO case that generates 4,000 pages of documentation, 847 recorded conversations, and 2 federal warrant applications that a judge reviews with the kind of scrutiny reserved for things that can unravel in court if a single procedural step was skipped on a single Tuesday in month 7. The case breaks, the arrests happen. You are not there for them. Someone else puts the cuffs on. Someone else stands at the press conference. Someone else shakes the U.S. attorney's hand while the cameras run. Your name is a footnote in a case file that will sit in a federal archive for 30 years. 14 months of your life. A paragraph. Success in counterterrorism looks exactly like nothing happened. That's the part nobody explains when you join the Joint Terrorism Task Force. In organized crime, you get the arrest. In financial crimes, you get the conviction. In counterterrorism, you get a classified memo, a case number that will never appear in any public record, and the knowledge that somewhere in a city of 3 million people, a Tuesday morning stayed ordinary because of work you can never describe to anyone who wasn't in the room. The JTTF pulls from everywhere. FBI agents, local police, CIA officers, NSA analysts, military intelligence. Everyone brings different authorities, different methods, different institutional cultures that don't always translate cleanly. You learn to operate in the overlap, the narrow space where federal law, intelligence collection, and operational security intersect without canceling each other out. The targets are not the mafia. There's no hierarchy to map, no financial trail that follows predictable logic. There's a 23-year-old in a studio apartment who found something online 8 months ago and has been moving toward a decision ever since. There's a chat room that exists for 3 weeks and then doesn't. There's a fertilizer purchase that is probably nothing, and statistically almost certainly nothing, but cannot be treated as nothing, because the one time it isn't nothing, the outcome is measured in body counts and congressional hearings named after the dead. You prevent 3 plots in 4 years. None of them make the news. 2 of the subjects are arrested on lesser charges to protect the sources that identified them. One is quietly deported after an intelligence sharing agreement produces information that would compromise a foreign operation if it ever appeared in open court. 3 times you were in the room where the timeline stopped. Nobody sends a press release about a timeline that stopped. You come home one evening and your wife asks how your day was. It's a question she asks out of love and habit, not expectation. She learned 2 years ago that the honest answer is never available. You say fine. She says good. You sit down to dinner with the specific weight of classified information pressing on the part of your chest where normal conversation used to live. Your mother still thinks you investigate bank robberies. You have a security clearance that makes correcting her a federal matter, so you let her believe it. Monday morning, 7:43 a.m., 2 emails waiting before you reach your desk. The first is from an agent on your squad. He says he's fine. The second is from another agent on your squad. She says she's fine. You've been a supervisory special agent long enough to know that fine is the Bureau's most dishonest word. Fine means functioning. Fine means still showing up. Fine means the damage hasn't become visible yet, which is entirely different from the damage not existing. You manage 10 agents now. You don't work cases anymore. Cases belong to them. What belongs to you is everything cases leave behind and the people who work them. The first agent is going through a divorce. His wife didn't leave because she stopped loving him. She left because she spent 9 years married to a man who came home present in body and absent in every way that a marriage requires. 4 transfers in 9 years, a phone that never fully turned off, a husband who could describe in forensic detail the behavioral patterns of a mid-level organized crime figure, but couldn't remember their anniversary without a calendar reminder. She didn't issue an ultimatum, she just stopped waiting for a version of him that the Bureau had already claimed. The second agent processed 40,000 images during a child exploitation prosecution 8 months ago. The case resulted in a conviction. The evidence was airtight. The prosecutor called it exemplary work. She hasn't slept more than 4 hours consecutively since the week she started that assignment. She runs 7 miles every morning before sunrise because movement is the only thing that creates enough distance between her and the images that follow her home. You send her to the Employee Assistance Program. She resents you for it immediately, visibly, in the way that people resent being seen when they've worked hard to appear invisible. In the Bureau's internal culture, asking for help reads as weakness. Weakness doesn't get promoted. Weakness gets quietly reassigned to cases nobody fights over. You send her anyway, because you've said you were fine approximately 100 times yourself, and you know exactly what fine is covering. At 11 p.m., you sign an operational authorization that puts 2 of your agents in a dangerous neighborhood at 2 a.m. to photograph a target. If something goes wrong, if the target makes them, if the situation escalates, your signature is on that form. You lie awake running the scenarios. The answer is always maybe. There is a room in every federal building that looks identical. Oval table, leather chairs. A whiteboard someone erased incompletely, so the ghost of a previous decision is still visible if you look at the right angle. Bad coffee from a machine nobody services. A window that faces another building's window. This is the room where the gap between law and politics becomes something you can physically feel in the air. You are ASAC now, Assistant Special Agent in Charge. You manage 50 agents across 4 investigative programs. Every significant operational decision passes through you before it reaches the SAC. You are the last person in the chain who still understands what the case actually looks like from the ground, and the first person in the chain who has to translate ground-level reality into language that survives contact with Washington. The case on the table has been running for 22 months. A sitting congressman. Financial records that tell a story no legitimate explanation covers. Wiretap conversations that a jury would understand in under an hour. A cooperating witness who has been inside the operation for 14 months and whose safety depends on how quickly the investigation moves to arrest. The evidence is not circumstantial. The evidence is a wall, but the congressman chairs the committee that oversees the Bureau's budget. The U.S. attorney wants to wait until after the midterm election. Bringing charges 6 weeks before a vote creates a political narrative that complicates prosecution, he says. What he means is that it creates a political narrative that complicates careers. Your agents want to move now. Every day they wait, the target shreds another layer of documentation. They can see it happening in real time through the financial monitoring. The evidence wall is getting shorter. You brief the SAC. The SA briefs headquarters. Headquarters briefs the deputy director. The deputy director consults the attorney general's office. 12 days later, the answer comes back in a single sentence. Stand down. You walk into the squad room and tell your agents to hold their positions. You watch them absorb it, the particular silence of people who understand exactly what standing down means but are not allowed to say it out loud. That evening you stop in front of a bathroom mirror and stay there longer than you intend to. The person looking back has your face. But the expression belongs to someone you didn't plan on becoming. You learn to speak in front of cameras the way surgeons learn to operate. Through repetition until the performance becomes automatic and the nerves become background noise, you no longer consciously register. Special agent in charge. You run the office now. 300 personnel, agents, analysts, forensic accountants, surveillance specialists, support staff who keep the institutional machinery turning. When something significant happens in your jurisdiction, and something significant happens with a frequency that civilians would find alarming, you are the face that stands at the podium. You are the Bureau made visible. 2 moments from 1 week last spring. Tuesday, a 3-year financial crimes investigation culminates in 14 simultaneous arrests across 2 states. Your agents executed flawlessly. The U.S. attorney is generous with credit at the press conference, mentions the Bureau 4 times in his opening statement. You stand at the microphone and answer questions from reporters who are already filing their stories before you finish your sentences. Your photograph appears in 3 national outlets. Your name is spelled correctly in 2 of them. Back at the office, your agents are doing paperwork. Friday, a search warrant executed by 2 agents from your violent crime squad produces the wrong apartment. Bad intelligence from a source whose reliability rating should have triggered additional verification before the operation was authorized. A family's front doors destroyed at 5 a.m. Nobody is injured, but a father has to explain to his children why men with guns came through the door before sunrise, and that explanation will outlast anything the Bureau's formal apology process produces. The Office of Professional Responsibility opens an inquiry. Your phone receives calls from the field office's legal counsel, the SSCC of the adjacent division, and a congressional staffer who heard about it before the internal review was even scheduled. You answer every call with the same measured language you were trained to use. The language that acknowledges facts without conceding liability, expresses concern without manufacturing emotion. Then your cyber squad's 2-year investigation into a transnational fraud network gets absorbed by headquarters because it crossed into national security territory, and the cyber division wants operational control. You gather the squad, you explain that this is how the bureau works, that their contribution will be part of something larger, that the work matters regardless of who gets the credit. They nod because they have to. You said the same words to your own supervisor 15 years ago. You didn't believe them either. 35,000 employees, 56 field offices, 60 international attaché posts, a $10 billion annual budget that gets debated by people who have never spent a night in a monitoring room or signed an operational authorization that put agents in danger. From the outside, this looks like power. From the inside, it looks like a calculation you're constantly running. How much institutional weight can move in one direction before political gravity pulls it back? You are executive assistant director now. The J. Edgar Hoover Building on Pennsylvania Avenue. Brutalist concrete designed in an era when government wanted its buildings to communicate permanence and ended up communicating something closer to immovability. You have an office on a floor most agents will never visit. You attend meetings with the Attorney General. You testify before Senate committees in closed sessions where the questions are written by staff members and the answers are vetted by the Bureau's Office of Congressional Affairs before you're allowed to speak them aloud. You choose your words in congressional testimony the way a demolitions expert handles unstable material, meant with total attention, no improvisation, and the constant awareness that a single misplaced phrase will be the only sentence anyone remembers. The Bureau is supposed to be independent of political pressure. It is independent mostly in the way that a very large ship is independent of the current, capable of maintaining its own course, but not without registering the force pushing against it. Independence at this level doesn't mean the pressure doesn't exist. It means managing the pressure well enough that the 35,000 people below you still believe the institution is pointing at justice rather than expedience. Some days that belief is easier to maintain than others. A phone call comes from a senior White House aide about a case your counterterrorism division is running. The call is informal, conversational. Nobody is asking you to do anything specific. The aide is simply sharing perspective, providing context, noting that the timing of certain developments could create certain complications in certain conversations the administration is currently having. You thank him for the context. You hang up and sit with the silence for a long moment. Then you think about a Tuesday morning in Omaha, 22 years ago. A man in a motel room watching television, an arrest that took 11 minutes, a case that was uncomplicated in every direction. You missed the bank robberies, not the work, the clarity. The first morning without the badge is a Thursday in October. You wake at 5:47 a.m. because your body hasn't received the message yet. You reach for the credential case on the nightstand out of pure muscle memory. 25 years of the same motion, the same weight, the same instinct to confirm it's there before anything else happens in the day. Your hand finds an empty surface. The case is in a shadow box on the wall of your home office behind glass, next to a flag that flew over the Hoover Building and a letter signed by the director. You make coffee. You sit at the kitchen table. You have nowhere to be by a specific time for the first time since you were 26 years old. It feels less like freedom than like a language you no longer have a use for. The consulting firm pays $250,000 a year for your expertise, your network, and the credibility that attaches to the words, former FBI, the way a tide attaches to a shore. Reliably, without requiring effort, you sit in glass-walled conference rooms with executives who describe a $2 million internal fraud as an existential threat to the organization. You listen carefully, you provide analysis, you bill hourly at a rate that would have taken you 4 months to earn in Omaha. You think about a case from year 11. A target you surveilled for 8 months who was arrested on a March morning while his kids were at school. The case never made headlines. The conviction was never cited in any bureau press release. You remember the specific quality of light in the monitoring room the morning the wiretap produced the conversation that broke the case open. Low winter sun through a single window, your cold coffee. The moment a man's voice said the wrong thing and 2 years of work suddenly had a destination. Nobody in the consulting firm's conference room will ever understand why that memory is worth more to you than the equity package. You go to the alumni reunion every year. You fly across the country for it. You sit in hotel bars with people who knew you before the titles and tell stories until the room gets quiet. The badge is behind glass. The agent is still awake at 3 a.m. Somewhere right now it's a Sunday night and someone is reading an acceptance email for the third time. They're 26, maybe 28. A law degree, or a computer science degree, or 4 years of military service that taught them discipline, but not this particular kind of patience. They've watched every documentary, read every memoir, constructed in their mind a version of this life assembled from the parts that make it onto screens. The arrests, the press conferences, the moments where justice arrives visibly and on schedule. Let me tell you what the documentaries don't cover. They don't show you the monitoring room at hour 10 of a 12-hour shift when the target stops talking about anything useful and you're transcribing a conversation about grocery lists into a federal case file because the protocol requires you to document everything, and the protocol exists for a reason. You'll only understand the first time a defense attorney tries to find the gap you left. They don't show you the bathroom mirror moment. Every agent has one. The specific night when you look at yourself and recognize that the person the Bureau built is standing where the person you used to be was standing, and you're not entirely sure when the transition happened or whether it was a choice. They don't show you what the silence does to the people who love you. Not the dramatic silence of secrets. The ordinary silence of a person who has spent the day processing things that don't survive translation into dinner conversation. The silence that settles into a marriage slowly, the way water finds its level until the people across the table from you learn to read what you don't say instead of what you do. They don't show you the morning without the badge. But here is the thing about all of it: the transfers, the paperwork, the invisible victories, the compromises, the cost. Here is the thing that the retiree in the hotel bar knows, and the 26-year-old reading the acceptance email is about to spend a lifetime learning. The application gets submitted anyway. The Sunday night comes anyway. And when they ask you decades from now whether you do it again, you won't answer right away, but both of you will already know.